a sunny day in San Diego, and happy Pride. Happy Pride, everybody. It's a great way to start a weekend. We've had a lot of activities, and certainly it culminates in some fantastic community celebration this weekend. But we've got some great work happening out of the state legislature that we're excited to talk with you about here today. My name is Chris Ward. I'm the state assembly member for the 78th Assembly District right here in central San Diego. And I want to thank Senator Atkins for having me be here with her to talk about Senate Bill 447 and for her authoring this important piece of legislation. We've all seen the increased targeting and hateful language and the attacks on the LGBTQ plus community in recent years, especially this year. We know that Americans are becoming increasingly divided. But cutting ourselves off from the rest of the country is not sustainable, and things are only going to get worse if we don't pivot our strategy. Instead of a hard line of no contact, we need a line to reach people where they are at. Senate Bill 447 is a pathway forward so we can begin having those difficult conversations again and resolving our differences. Senator Atkins is the right leader to help set us on the new path. I want to thank her again for introducing this bill and for all of our community members that have been here to talk a little bit about the bridge. And with that, I'm going to look forward to handing over to our senator from the 18th Senate District, Senator Steve Padilla.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember Ward, and good morning, everyone. Really honored to be among you, especially at Pride. Happy Pride. Again, I'm looking forward to Pride this year like I haven't in a few. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I'm excited. And I'm honored to stand among some amazing colleagues that are in public service and also part of our community. In particular, our amazing President Pro Tem, Senator Toni Atkins. San Diego is very special to me. It's the city of my birth. It is a city where I've given my adult life to service and where we all kind of skin our knees in life and experience the good and the bad and sometimes the hard things that need to be done. And when we try to do those things, we're very, very extra fortunate if we stand with friends, supporters, role models who are with us in those moments. And for me, in my own journey, in coming out in public at the Spirit of Stonewall 18 years ago, there was someone near me who I asked to introduce me, who's I've always looked up to and admired and respected, and that's our Pro Tem, Toni Atkins. She's always been reminding us in her own unique way and encouraging us that sometimes the harder work needs to be done to make the real progress. And I was thinking about the bill that she's authored, the approach that together we're all going to encourage and support in SB 447, the Bridge Project, and I was thinking about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King when he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." Building bridges, connecting with one another's humanity, leaning into the painful hate, spending time giving love and showing love to those that do not show it to us is painful and hard, but it is necessary. It is very, very necessary. So let the hard work begin. Let's do it together, standing by each other's side. And with those thoughts in mind, it is a tremendous honor to introduce, again, our friend, my colleague, a mentor and an inspiration, our Pro Tem, Senator Toni Atkins.
Well, good morning and happy Pride, everyone. I gotta say this, I love the music, and we entered to Sly and the Family Stone. Yes, I'm doing it. Everyday People, a song from 1966. I hope you'll go back and look at the words to this song because it is pretty prescient and profound. But I want to thank you, Senator Padilla, for the introduction. And as San Diego prepares for our annual Pride festivities, we're here to talk about an important new initiative known as the Bridge Project to spread positive messages of inclusion that help open minds and hearts. And that is the goal. I want to start by thanking and acknowledging my legislative colleagues, again, Senator Padilla and my Assembly member, Chris Ward. I want to acknowledge some folks that are here with us today San Diego City Council members Stephen Whitburn and Marnie Von Whitburn is here with us today. Kara Desert, the CEO of the center, our Gay and Lesbian Center. Fernando Lopez, the Executive Director of Pride. I'm thrilled that Dr. Charles Toombs, the President of the California Faculty Association, is here, and two remarkable change makers. Waylon Booth and Kristen Wood will share their stories in a few minutes. I also want to acknowledge representatives from Equality California, the Human Rights Campaign, the San Diego section, and the California Commission on the State of Hate, who are also here with us today. Sadly, as Senator Padilla and Assemblymember Ward made reference to, we're living in extremely polarizing times, with the LGBTQ plus community under attack by extremist politicians and commentators. Nearly 500 pieces of anti-LGBTQ plus laws have been introduced this year alone nationwide, and many of those target our trans youth. Today, a little bit later today, we are expecting our Attorney General to announce that California will be restricting state-funded travel to 3 additional states, Missouri, Nebraska, and Wyoming, as a result of their anti-LGBTQ plus legislation recently enacted there. And that's going to bring the number of states impacted by the current travel ban to 26. More than half of our country is moving backwards. And under current California law, we can't even go there to help or to support those who may be feeling under attack. Nor can we get there to help widen understanding. And that's why this legislation, SB 447, the Bridge Project, is so important. It would lift the California travel ban that currently prevents state-funded travel to states with discriminatory practices and policies. And it would create in its place a positive, nonpartisan education and marketing campaign aimed at promoting inclusion and acceptance of the LGBTQ plus community nationwide. Now, research has shown us that individual relationships play a huge part in widening acceptance and understanding. In fact, people knowing someone who is lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender helps a lot in making society more accepting. And that's what the Bridge Project, and let me tell you finally what that stands for: building and reinforcing inclusive, diverse, gender-supportive equality. And that's what the Bridge Project seeks to do. You know, our stories really matter. And you're going to hear a couple of stories from a number of folks here today. What made me want to do this piece of legislation and talk about building a bridge is my own story. You know, I did not grow up in San Diego. I grew up in southwestern Virginia, very conservative rural community, and I do not recall any visible examples of LGBTQ people when I grew up. There were whispers about a cousin, but it was always whispers. It was never out loud. It was never positive. And so as a child, I took that to mean it's not good, right? So my parents, who are no longer with us, and I credit them with a lot, they were of the evangelical faith as Christians. I went to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, vacation Bible school, and tent revivals. All of it. And I would say that I was fearful when I came out to my parents at age 18, 19, somewhere in between there. But I will tell you, my parents accepted me and they loved me regardless. They did not understand. It took them a while. In fact, the first gay pride my mother came to, she couldn't march in the parade. She wasn't physically able. We found her a beautiful tree in Balboa Park in the shade. And afterwards she said to me, "Toni, there was a group of family I could march with." I said, "That's P-flag, Mom." I said, "But Mom, you could have marched with me if you were able to march." But she wanted to tell me I saw family. She saw herself. And I think that's what's so important. So I am forever grateful that my parents accepted me, because so many do not. So the goal, of course, is to help people see and understand the value of compassion, of reaching past the rhetoric and getting to know one another, as my mom got to know my friends and came so really supportive to the end of her days. And that's what we want to do so that we can live peacefully together. And an example of what we're trying to do, I would just mention, as I often do, someone I look up to, Dolly Parton. Many of you may have seen, even in California, the billboards in Los Angeles and San Francisco. People text me pictures because they know I love Dolly so much, of the billboards that show kindness. That's her message, kindness and love. So that's one example, but an example of what we mean when we say inclusive messaging is what you see here today on this truck, this billboard. It isn't an exact depiction because that will be determined at a later time, but an idea of what we're talking about. In my career and in my life, I've sought to be a bridge builder, reach across the aisle to get solutions in place that help real people. Our country has been so divided. This is a way that we, as a state and as champions of progress, can help build bridges of understanding and unify communities. So today you're going to hear from some officials and community leaders who will share why this new approach is so important. And now it gives me great pleasure, frankly, to turn it over to someone I've known many years, and that is to Fernando Lopez, an amazing champion of our LGBTQ plus community here in San Diego and beyond.
Hi, yes, my name is Fernando Lopez. I'm the Executive Director at San Diego Pride, and I use they, them, their pronouns. And it really is just humbling to be here with such visionary leaders, especially our Senate President Pro Tem, Toni Atkins. We know that our community is under threat like never before. We know that a war is being waged against us by extremists that are attempting to strip away our rights, our health care, our families, and our very freedom. And if there's anything that I know about our community, is that we don't back down from a fight. We know how to show up for each other in our times of need. I grew up in the Imperial Valley, which was the most homophobic county in all of California when it voted almost 70% in favor of Proposition 8 in 2008. So you can imagine what it was like growing up there in the 80s and 90s as a little queer kid, feeling isolated, disconnected, and ending up homeless because of my sexual orientation. I know what it feels like to feel isolated and like no one has your back. And that is why this bridge project is so important. California has been a leader in supporting the LGBT community here in this state, and California will again be a leader in building these bridges of understanding, of compassion all across this country for our LGBTQ siblings. As the bridge project moves forward, it is important for all of us to remember that this is not just about these policies and laws. This is about our real lives, about the lived experience of LGBTQ people, us, human beings, and our families. It's about the transgender youth who might be struggling with acceptance and access to mental health. It's about the non-binary student who might be feeling isolated and can't access health care. It's about our LGBTQ families that live in fear because of the current onslaught of legislation is literally attempting to take away their children and put parents in prison. I couldn't be more honored to stand here with these inspiring leaders, laying the foundation for what is a vital, game-changing bill for the LGBTQ community across this country. So with SB 447, we're not just building bridges, we are building a better future for all of us. And speaking of our future, it is my honor to welcome Waylon Booth, who at only 17 years old organized the first Ramona Pride Walk, the first Pride event in Laguna Mountain foothills town, and now in its second year, Ramona Pride Walk boasted 130 attendees just last month. Please welcome Waylon Booth.
Thank you. My name is Waylon Booth, and I use he, him, his. I was raised in Ramona, California, a very rural a rural town rich with agriculture and life. I wasn't only raised there, but my family name persists through generations in that town as one of its many founders. We're raised on hard work, morals, dirt, and grime, but most importantly, fear. Much like many conservative states, it's an echo chamber of dangerous ideology that traps and consumes those that enter it. I heard a lot growing up from others about how they feared my town and feared for us, but none of them would help us. None of them wanted to speak out. They were far too afraid. They shut us out and discredited Ramona as forgotten and a lost cause. Ramona Pride was a project I started because nobody else would do it, because help wasn't coming from the outside, and they had long decided we were not deserving of it. During the duration of my efforts, I was approached by many of my peers who, like me, had been born and lived their lives in this forgotten place to thank me for helping them. Hundreds of these people told me that they thought they were the only one, alone and afraid, and that they thought one day they would have to choose between Ramona, their home, and their lives, their safety. They grew up here and their memories were here, and they could see no fellow LGBT people lifting them up. We still don't have anything in that town but each other, but we are enough to lift up and give each other hope for a better tomorrow. Now, I find myself remembering years before Ramona Pride as I hear about this bill. I hear California as we speak about these states and discredit them as lost causes and refuse to reach our hand out for help. My home was insulted and berated, and we were left to fend for ourselves. Our queer brothers and sisters call these states home, much like I call Ramona mine. They are surrounded by danger and fear, and the voice of our community is silent in their suffering. Without support, without the promise of a future worth fighting for, there will be no fight. They will not have the energy to fight for themselves. People will be lost in this isolation, as rather than reach out a hand to those who do not have a voice of their own, we run, watching fearfully from the distance as our families fight for their right to be alive, all the while demonizing the soil they call their home and their lives. They deserve better. They deserve our support and our love, and with this bill, we can reach them and give them that. Show them there is a future that they can fight for and that we are fighting with them. California has set themselves as leaders in this change, but we refuse to fight for the people who need it the most. We refuse to promise a better future to people who find themselves in these states, alone, afraid, much like I was in my home many years ago. Progress is driven by perseverance, but nobody can persevere when they are abandoned by the very people that they are supposed to call family. We must use this bill to reach them, to give them power and support. They need us more than ever, and this is our chance to give it to them. And it is my great honor to introduce the lovely Kara Desert, the CEO of the San Diego LGBT Center, who is helping us with this.
Good morning. I am proud to be here today in support of the Bridge Project. My name's Kara Desert. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the CEO of your San Diego LGBT Community Center. This bill is a critical step forward in building community across state lines for LGBTQ people. Thank you, Senator Atkins, for your leadership in creating this opportunity for California to extend our pride across the country. Growing up as a queer youth in El Centro, I know what it's like to live in an environment that is hostile to who you are. So many LGBT people remember the hurt, the fear, and the harm that too many of us have endured too often alone. Because of hostility and lack of support at home and in community, countless studies show that LGBT youth are twice as likely to take their lives than their straight peers. But here is what gives me so much hope. When you flip that statistic, studies also show that when an LGBTQ youth has just one caring adult or safe space that supports their identity, they are no longer at high risk for suicide. That means that just one teacher, just one parent, just one family member, just one elected official, one supportive after-school program can literally save lives and give our youth back the future that they deserve. When LGBTQ youth have safety and support, when they see a lifeline to connect to community, we see them shine and thrive as their authentic selves. Young people at the center's youth centers tell me about the impact of having a safe place to come after school where they can find help, support, and community. The center is our region's largest LGBTQ service provider and advocacy organization, and a huge part of that work is creating safe and supportive spaces for our community, including our youth who are the next generation of San Diego leaders. We're proud to have 2 youth centers in Hillcrest and Chula Vista, where we offer a wide range of services promoting health, wellness, and community empowerment. Thousands of young people, ages 10 to 24, have come through our doors to build community, to invest in their futures, and to truly be themselves. And so many of those young people today have grown up and are leaders across sectors in San Diego. But when LGBTQ youth are more than twice as likely to experience homelessness, we know that after-school programs are not enough. So 4 years ago, on Pride Weekend, we opened the first LGBTQ affirming youth shelter. We started with 4 beds. Today we have 21 and are expanding to meet the overwhelming need of youth experience homelessness. Thanks to this partnership with the City of San Diego, next year we will have 45 beds, creating one of the largest LGBTQ affirming shelters in the country. Together, we can continue to build more supportive communities here in San Diego, including Ramona, but we know that too many LGBTQ people in our country do not have a supportive community, and too many of our youth do not have a caring adult, an after-school program, or if they get kicked out of their homes, a safe and affirming shelter to get services. We need to encourage acceptance for LGBTQ people across the country and shine a light on our beautiful, diverse, incredible LGBTQ community. The Bridge Project will help more youth feel less alone, less isolated in the places that they need hope more than anywhere else. Thank you again for making this vision a reality, Senator Atkins, and happy Pride to you all. And now it's my honor to introduce Dr. Charles Toombs, President of the California Faculty Association and a Vice President of SEIU California. Dr. Toombs is the immediate past chair of Africana Studies at SDSU, specializing in Africana literature and Black queer studies. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Toombs.
Good morning, all. I am the first openly gay president of the California Faculty Association and the second Black president of the California Faculty Association. Under my leadership, we are one of the strongest unions in the country on anti-racism and social justice, and we are certainly here to support the Bridge Project. But we are also faculty, and faculty in the CSU are often asked to speak on panels, attend professional meetings and conferences in other states. It's really part of the work that they do. Right now, they can only do that work by using private funds and donations. And this largely excludes the largest number of our faculty who are lecturer faculty, who are the lowest paid, and who often do not qualify for tenure line state funds and have to apply for other campus resources. Not being in those spaces eliminates the ability to discuss these issues in scholarly and research-based ways, whether these are issues of gender, gay rights, anti-racism and social justice, critical race theory, and others. Being able to go to more conservative areas to educate people helps widen their perspectives. We don't want to avoid spaces where we disagree. Instead, we want to have a presence there. On the national level, major academic organizations and unions are encouraging members to go to these states enacting anti-LGBTQ+ and anti-Black legislation and policies and present alternative perspectives on these issues. We see these issues as violations of civil rights, and like the civil rights movement of the 1960s, people from other states are needed there to help those fighting the repression that is occurring. California often leads the nation in promoting and fighting for human rights and human decency, equity, racial justice, and inclusion. Our voices, perspectives, and expertise must be added to the debate and to the discussion. That's the intention of the Bridge Project, and the California Faculty Association will be there to support all of the efforts that come out of that project. I now would like to introduce the magnificent, marvelous, dynamic Christine Wood. Actually, that is Kristen Wood.
Oh, there you are. Good morning to all in attendance today. My name is Kristen Lily Renee Wood. I know you know my pronouns, but let's give it to you anyway. She, her, hers, and oh my God, who let that lunatic near a microphone? And I am a proud transgender woman and a longtime San Diegan. I am a retired health and human services worker, community activist, and very proud grandmother. We shall address matters today of both abject horror and the strength, love, and courage and joy we will use to fight it together. Now know this, according to the ACLU, as recently as a few days ago, and by a few days ago I'm talking 7/7/23, in state legislatures across America, 491 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced. Now let's repeat that for those that don't think they heard that correctly. Nearly 500 pieces of legislation that are steeped in ignorance, perverse dogma, and downright hatred stand on the cusp of becoming state law. Let's just call out those main offenders based on just how many of these fascist proposals have been presented. Arizona 11, Florida 10, Indiana 18, Iowa 29, Kansas 14, Kentucky 11, Minnesota 10, Mississippi 25, Missouri 48, North Carolina 11, North Dakota 17, Oklahoma 35, South Carolina 20, Tennessee 26, Virginia 12, and everybody's favorite, Texas 53. These proposals are hateful abominations, and any group that would deny its citizens basic human and civil rights have clearly embraced a philosophy of cruelty and sadism that is beyond description. What the leaders of the 21st century Fourth Reich didn't plan on is, they didn't plan on us. From an organized resistance of love, support, and access to potential resources from the Golden State, which, by the way, has never been more golden, where rainbows have never shined brighter. Throughout her career in both the Assembly and Senate, our Senator Pro Tem Toni Atkins has authorized and sponsored legislation that has given myself and others the life-saving ability to use facilities like bathrooms and locker rooms that align with our sense of gender identity. Truly, she did save my life a few years ago after I suffered 2 assaults in a men's locker room at a gym. Understand this, dear attendees. We may be preparing ourselves for the possible likelihood of a second Underground Railroad featuring the prosecuted escaping torment for the promise of the Golden State. Now, if indeed that happens, I welcome them with love, joy, and fellowship. With regard to the awesome promise and potential of State Bill 447, I say this: a more divine and timely piece of Senate legislation has never been seen by these eyes before. If I want to see Wonder Woman, I don't need to open an illustrated book or watch a movie. I just need to look to my right and a couple of feet behind me and see my beloved sister, State Senator Toni Atkins. And I turn it over to you to close.
Well, thank you, Kristen. If I'm Wonder Woman, these are the Avengers. I do want to say that if you heard Waylon's comments from Ramona, we've got work to do here in California. We've got work to do here. We can't look outward and not look inward on many issues. But I will say it's so important for us to do this because when we enacted the travel ban in 2016, which I voted for, we sought to send a message, and that message was received. You saw in North Carolina when we enacted the ban, that the NCAA didn't host their tournament there. Singers and performers canceled concerts. So it did send a message. But here we are a number of years later, and it has ceased to be the kind of effective tool to send a message that we had hoped. So it is time to pivot. And I am thankful to live in California. And again, I know that we have challenges, I know we have issues. But I am so thankful to be part of a legislature with my colleagues that are here today and others that have enacted some of the strongest LGBTQ plus policies across the nation. And not just for the gay community, for all diverse communities that need to be lifted up for true equality. And I am proud to be part of that legislature. Here in San Diego, we have a city council that is doing incredible work along those lines. We need to provide the support everywhere. And I will tell you, when I was a kid in Southwest Virginia, I felt a lot like Waylon did. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know where those positive images would come from. But I do know this. I always will remember a commercial on TV. And those of you that are a little older might remember this. But I remember hearing a message. It was about Coca-Cola, actually. And the song attached was, "I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony." And I thought that was just so beautiful. I never forgot it. I had to remember a few times what it was about, a product. But you also see, when you watch some sports shows, you've seen positive images by a national campaign that puts together marketing and educational materials that support, let's say, differently abled athletes. I saw one at some, it might have been the Super Bowl, where you saw athletes in wheelchairs participating in sports. Those are the kinds of messages, so that people get to see pictures of themselves participating in society in every way possible. And I like to think that that kind of messaging allows professors to go do the research, to get published, and that we support them in their ability to travel, because that's so important. And so with that, I have a lot of really great colleagues here. Our goal is to use SB 447 to change minds and open hearts, and that's what this piece of legislation will do. We welcome any questions you might have. We'll stand here for a minute or two, but if the press also wants to talk to people individually, I'm sure folks are willing to. Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Happy Pride, everyone, and folks are going to be here for a bit to mingle. Happy Pride.